I'm Marion. I'm the Associate Fellow Researching Graduate Programs, and I want to welcome you all. And I'm simply going to turn it over shortly, but I wanted to actually compliment and our graduate council, student council, for planning and having and facilitating this seminar today. This is their third one, and the council has been in place now they're in their third year, and they're very active in getting graduate students more involved in the college activities, as well as helping us, giving us input as to how our directions and where we should go as a College of Public Health and Human Sciences. So I'm very thrilled that they've been so active, and I'm thrilled that they've taken on these seminars. And I'm just going to turn it over to the council, and I think that'll be Tim.
All right, thank you everyone for showing up. I feel like it's been in the works for about a year now, working on how we can bring extension into the seminars. Basically, just a quick rundown of what's going to happen. Roger is going to give us a brief overview of OSU as an extension land-grant university, and then we'll have our four awesome panelists come and talk about their work. And then we are going to go have a open discussion with some preemptive questions we have, and then the last bit for open questions and discussions. So our four panelists are Mary Arnold, professor and 4-H program specialist; Kathy Gunter, associate professor and extension specialist; Tanya Johnson, faculty in Marion County in family and community health; and Arnold Fonseca in Benton County for 4-H Latino coordinator. To start, Roger Rennekamp, Associate Dean for Outreach and Engagement.
Thanks, Tim. I probably don't need the microphone. No one has ever told me that I've needed a microphone before. So, well, it's a pleasure to be here. You know, today is Friday the 13th, okay? And you know, we got another one next month, too. We got another Friday the 13th next month. And I want this to be a Friday the 13th where we have lots of good things happening, you know, rather than what Friday the 13th are typically known for. And there are a lot of good things happening today. It's amazing that we have scheduled this today on a day that over in the MU, there's about 107, I think, faculty and staff who are together all day in a university-wide symposium on community engagement and service learning. And then we're doing this today, and it really does, it's very emblematic of OSU's commitment to making a difference in communities, extending beyond what we do on campus, you know, to make an impact in those communities. But at the same time, we also know that real-world experiences make learning fun, and it makes it real. So that's one of the reasons that we think this is so important as you know, as a university. Over the next couple of years, the university is going to have a strong emphasis on student success and student learning. You know, a lot of that's about at the undergraduate level, but we also think that what we can do to enhance the graduate experience as well, Marie, right, is very important. So, you know, people kind of laugh at me sometime about being the historian, okay? I'm really not that old, but sometimes people talk to me about, oh, you're the historian, you're the one that gives the lectures on the history of the land-grant university. Well, you know, sometimes I've been asked to do that impromptu at dinner conversations. Other times I've done presentations on it, and those, you know, sometimes range about an hour. Well, I'm going to bring it down to about 3 minutes, okay? And talk a little bit about what is so special about this university and land-grant universities in general. A lot of you have heard President Ray say something to the effect that, you know, service and engagement with communities is in our genetics or in our genes. You've heard him say that, and it truly is from the very beginning of what created land-grant universities. I think when I was talking with Rob and Tim, you know, is one of the things we talked about was that we hear this phrase land-grant, 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 but only a small fraction of the students that actually graduate from the institution have any idea of what it is. And the same can be true for a lot of our faculty and staff don't even know what it means to be a land-grant institution. So in a real short nugget, you know, back in the mid-1800s, this country was a very rural agricultural community. I mean, a really agricultural country. And at that point in time, who do you think went to college in, say, 1850? not the farmers, not the women, okay? Not the women, not the farmers, and only the rich, okay? So it was rich white males and probably not from rural areas. So in the mid-1800s, there began to be a movement in this country to design what are called people's colleges, institutions that anyone could attend, okay? That was also more relevant to the work that people were doing, you know, to make a living. And it was an agricultural nation at that time. So skipping ahead through a lot of the political maneuvering that led up to that, in 1862, a gentleman, Senator Justin Morrill, presented legislation at the national level to create this network of people's colleges, at least one in every state of the Union, okay? And at that particular point in time, one of the things that the university had, I mean, not the university, what the nation had, they didn't have a whole lot of money, but they had a lot of land, okay? We had just expanded to the West Coast, and the government owned tons and tons and tons of land that they could kind of use as currency. They could use that as currency. So since we didn't have any money as a federal government, we used land to finance these particular land grant universities, okay? So what happened was that President Lincoln eventually signed this bill that was sponsored by Justin Morrill in 1862 that gave to each state in the Union at that particular point in time thousands of acres of land that they could sell to create an endowment that would start a university. And that's what happened in Oregon. We got a lot of land down in Lake and Klamath counties that we were able to sell to start the university and to create the endowment. So we had this notion of people's colleges in each of the states across the country. So great, we had a place where people could come and learn, but there was no research going on at these universities. So in 1887, the Hatch Act created agricultural experiment stations and brought the research functions to these land grant universities. And then later on in 1914, people began to think about, in the early part of the 1900s, people started to think a little bit about, okay, so we're teaching students on campus, we're doing research, and the students are doing research and learning about all this cutting-edge research, but what good are we doing in communities? How are we getting this research and knowledge out into communities? So in 1914, Congress passed what was called the Smith-Lever Act. There were two, a senator and a representative from Georgia and South Carolina passed legislation to create really an outreach and engagement arm of these land-grant universities that at that time was known as the Extension Service. So that's how it's in our DNA. We're about teaching, and we're about research, and we're about community outreach and engagement to make a difference in communities. And you know when universities are the best? When those three work together, okay? We can't have just people teaching that are disconnected from the research. We can't have just researchers that are disconnected from the teaching and the outreach and engagement. And we can't have extension faculty just out in the community disconnected from the university, right? So we are best when we work together, and that's what we're trying to do here today. And we want to hear today about some of the work that some of the faculty are doing both on campus with extension appointments, but also off campus. You know, we have in our college alone about 200 faculty and staff who don't even have offices on campus. They're all across Oregon. So, you know, as we look at dealing with some of the social and health and wellness issues of communities across Oregon, they are logical partners for us to work with in doing community-based participatory research, in doing outreach programs, to doing education programs, to even doing alternative spring breaks and service projects in those communities. So that's what we're going to do, is try to build that connection a little bit between the teaching of our college, the research of our college, and our outreach and engagement programs of the college. So back to you guys. So that was the shortest I've ever done that. I'm getting closer to an elevator speech. I would have to be one of those long elevators, but we're getting closer.
You want to go first? In the order. Kathy? You're being volunteered. All right, so we're... Yeah. There we go. So we're going to have our 4 faculty present right now. We're going to try to keep these presentations under 5 minutes and then open it up for discussion.
Okay, so we were told 5 minutes, so which is, I'm already sort of feeling some anxiety from Roger's speech.
I hate to be anxiety-inducing, you know.
Before I start, I want to thank these guys because I did some of you may or may not know, I did my PhD here, and in 5 years, never once in the conversation in any seminar or college talk or anything was the word extension even communicated, let alone any sort of opportunities to intersect with extension. And I'm embarrassed to say, actually, that Carolyn Robb, who we recently lost, was a member of my committee, my graduate committee. But I knew her as a nutrition faculty, but she was a full-time extension faculty. So that's the degree of disconnect that we have sort of had historically. And to see that these guys actually sought us out to present to you is really sort of enormous growth over the years, and I really, I am appreciative on behalf of all my extension colleagues for that. So, very briefly, my disciplinary focus is in the development, implementation, evaluation of physical activity programs across the lifespan, and I look at how those programs influence physical activity behavior and how those programs influence the physiological, psychosocial, or numerous other outcomes associated with being physically active. Many of you know me in a very specific capacity, but I'm going to focus very intentionally on sort of the overarching things that I do as an extension specialist. And those things are to create, implement, evaluate, adapt, and disseminate physical activity programs. I conduct research that informs and improves extension programming and develop evidence-informed tools and resources, and then train and support faculty to utilize those tools and resources. So I'm going to show you a snippet of the things that I do, one thing that relates to each of those kind of priority areas. It's kind of the way I try to organize this in my 5 minutes. So in terms of creating, implementing, evaluating, adapting, etc., we have a large community-based exercise program called Better Bones and Balance, which actually started, we're coming up on a 20-year anniversary. So it predated me as a graduate student, some of the graduate students ahead of me. This was a graduate student dissertation, quite honestly. That was an exercise study looking at the effects of a particular form of exercise on skeletal health and fall risk and reduction. It had the benefit of one of the subjects in the research study being an extension faculty member who leveraged her considerable community contacts to get that group of women who didn't want to stop exercising to an established exercise class at Benton Community College at the Benton Center. That community-based program has since grown. We've got 17 sites in Benton County alone. We've got nearly 200 trained instructors throughout Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, and Idaho. So I sort of oversee the community-based program. We also, to meet this need, have developed an instructor training program, formalized that. We now have a certification program, and this, while small, has become a revenue-generating source to try to keep this program alive. We also continue to do research, and this is, I don't know if Tammy has done her figure 8 speech lately, but I feel like this really reflects that implementation of a community-based program and then continually evaluating, testing it, tweaking it, and then re-disseminating it or infusing new lessons learned into the instructor training program. The demand is such that now we've developed a DVD and we're in the midst of a study, and several of you in the room are engaged in that, to evaluate whether doing Better Bones and Balance at home to using a DVD modality is effective as well. So those are some of the myriad things that I do relative to creating, implementing, and this is just an example of one program. So, moving on to I have no idea where I am with time. I'm just going to keep moving on. The next kind of broad area in which I serve extension is to conduct research. And it's not just any sort of random research, but it's research that would uncover new information that ideally aligns with the sort of the mission, vision, and values of our extension programming, so that what we discover in the context of that research can inform our extension programming, improve it, and enhance the lives of community members throughout Oregon, as opposed to those who just live in Corvallis and Albany and who can get here to participate. So the example I'm showing is the Grow Healthy Kids and Communities project, which is actually a multi-level project. It engages numerous faculty. Deborah John, who's another family community health faculty member, is a co-PI, and she operates at the community level. My primary focus is at the school and individual level. We also, Perry Highstout is in the back, in Environmental Occupational Health Sciences is on our team. Lena Aita, who's a social demographer, was instrumental in the early stages of this research. Gail Langolato, who's over in horticulture, so it's very multidisciplinary. So very quickly, I wanted to show you some data because this highlights how what we learn informs what we do in extension. So orienting you, grade on the bottom here, we've got 1st through 6th grade, minutes of school day physical activity. Green is girls, orange is boys. Solid is total activity. That includes light, sitting around, doing nothing. Moderate and vigorous activity. Very insufficient levels of physical activity are happening during a 6 to 7 hour school day. And although these are means, there was not one child in our 1,500 to 2,000 child data set that actually accrued 60 minutes, which is the minimum recommended dose during the school day. These are rural children who are bused oftentimes more than an hour each way, so if they're not getting physical activity at school, the burden is on the parents to do so. So the overweight and obesity prevalence is high in this sample, and we also learned that the level of activity that they're doing is directly associated with that weight status. Children who are more active, who have more moderate to vigorous activity, have lower BMI. So what happens at that school in terms of their physical activity is important, and they're not getting enough. So that brings me to sort of this last piece of what I do, which is to develop evidence-informed tools, resources, and then train and support faculty to implement those. So this is actually a project I've been working on for a while with our Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is the creation of a physical activity toolkit that was intended to help nutrition educators infuse physical activity programming into their nutrition education curricula. Well, given that we have learned and grow that only 3 out of 5 kids are at a healthy weight, none of these kids are getting sufficient levels of physical activity, and that the amount of physical activity they get at school influences their weight status. Leveraging the fact that we've got supplemental nutrition assistance programs educators in every county, they're in almost 200 schools across the state. What we're going to do in March is train our educators to train teachers to use these toolkits, and we're going to be provisioning schools across the state so that they have access, they have this resource so that we can go back and hopefully see increases in the amount of physical activity that those kids are getting. And I will say just yesterday, I have to share because I'm so excited about it, one of my undergraduates is looking at some ancillary data, and she found that families who are under-resourced or who identify as food insecure, the one thing that they consistently indicate they cannot do is provide opportunities for physical activity for their kids. So that only emphasizes how much more important this kind of work is for our low-income audiences. That's the nutshell. So I guess we'll save questions for the panel piece. Is that okay? So this is thank you, and just so you can, when you think about the impacts of everything that we have the potential to do, you can see how broadly we're established across the state. I guess Marion or something else.
Yeah, whoever wants to go next.
I'll go first. Sure.
as I was listening to Kathy, I said, she does my job. Everything she said and more in some cases. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marion Arnold. I'm a 4-H youth development specialist here on campus, and I'm also a professor in the School of Social Behavioral Health Sciences and faculty member in HDFS. So kind of gives you my placement here. One of the things that's a little bit unique in the work that I do is if you think about what Kathy presented, she's really talking about, often we're talking about educating citizens to understand a better way of living for whatever it is, whether it's how to grow cotton or how to get more physical activity, and then providing research-based tools and strategies to help increase behavior change. As a youth development specialist, we're not so involved in creating behavior change because, as you know, youth are developing. And what we're trying to do is optimize the positive youth development of youth. And particularly, I work with the 4-H program, which is our Extension Youth Development Program. So I get to hang out with kids that are young and kids that are old. And the picture on the left is a group of adolescents that I took to Atlanta a few years ago to National 4-H Congress. And we had fun in Olympic Park on a beautiful sunny November day. And then some of you might recognize your colleagues, Jeff Flesh and Joy Lyle, who are graduate students working with me. And we went to Idaho this summer to do a site visit of a program we were evaluating called the Food Smart Family Programs. So a lot of what I do, while I spend a lot of time behind the computer in my office, I also spend a lot of time in the field. And that's really a lot of fun. I should say academically, my bachelor's degree is in developmental psychology and my master's and PhD is in human development with an emphasis on adolescent development. Let's see, how do we go next? There we go. So I'm going to give you a brief overview just of kind of the three main things that I do in my work. And the first one is as a youth development content specialist. I'm really the person who knows the literature of what's going on in positive youth development and says, what does this mean on the ground for how we're trying to do work with our 4-H program in Oregon? So we start to talk about different ways of describing adolescent development and different strategies that we know that are emerging from the literature. Then I'm really the person who is responsible for making sure that we are aware of that literature and how we're putting it to use in informing our programs. So as a result of that, I work on the program model for overall 4-H as well as implications for evaluation and implementation of programs. Because we work with educators across the states and also who then in turn work with a volunteer base of close to 7,000, is that the right number, Roger? 4-H volunteers across the state. So it's a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of information we have to develop to make sure that they also are using strategies that we know are evidence-based and in line with best practices for youth development. So a lot of training materials for our educators and for our volunteers. I lead the effort in the 4-H program for our program planning and our program evaluation efforts and have done that for a number of years. I'm also heavily involved nationally on our national strategic work for 4-H nationally, and then conduct a number of 4-H program evaluations on contract for our national organization. And that is a picture of our National 4-H Conference Center just outside of Washington, D.C. in Chevy Chase, Maryland. So I spend a fair amount of time there. But it's a wonderful national gathering place for 4-H youth from across the country. So they come and get to experience Washington and do a lot of national programming there. I should also say that I didn't put on here that I also serve on the governor appointment for the Youth Development Council in the state of Oregon. So lend kind of a research perspective to the programming decisions and policy decisions that the council makes. So like Kathy, one of the additional things that I do in my work is to translate research into programming. And this is my latest endeavor that we're working on. It's called Yay 4-H Youth Advocates for Health. And with our 4-H recently moved, I guess it's so recently, but relatively recently, into the College of Public Health and Human Sciences. Who knows what the 4-H's are? Okay, excited. Gloria.
head, heart, health, and hand.
Exactly.
If that's not the right order, I'm not responsible.
It's the right order too. Health has always been an emphasis of 4-H, and so we haven't really brought that part of our program to the forefront as much as we have in the last 5 to 10 years. And so it just makes sense that we need to really be part of the College of Public Health and Human Sciences, and we need to bring health forward in our work. So this program in a nutshell is about engaging teens in advocacy work around health-related concerns that they have. And Leif Gifford, who's here, is working with me very carefully and closely to develop some curricula. First, about developing youth-adult partnerships to support youth advocate work around health in communities. It's really important that teens have those partnerships to make it happen. A beautiful new curriculum coming out on engaging teens as teachers. So how do teens then turn around and teach younger kids about health-related concerns? And the work that Joy and Jeff did this summer, a lot around really what are the best practices of teen teachers. And they have a paper coming out at some point very soon on these best practices related to teen teaching. And then the third component is actually community-based participatory research and evaluation with youth. So youth identifying the concerns in their community and then actually engaging their community in a YPAR project of some sort. So this program is just coming to scale. I think it will really launch full in the fall, so we're turning to program implementation now. And so once the program is developed, then I'll start to take a different stance, and that will be about really measuring that and monitoring the implementation and then measuring the impact of the program. Again, going full cycle back to then how do we improve it and keep it in alignment with what we know about engaging youth in these types of programs. So it's kind of an ongoing cycle of work. And then, oh, there's the color. Well, it had to be there. Then the third big part of my work is working directly with our educators who are across the state. They are out there every day, hands-on in their community working. So on the left is Pat Willis, one of our great scientists, teaches the love of the natural world and natural science to youth across the state. This was a couple years ago on our Ocean Watch research vessel that we had out at Newport. And then on the bottom right is Janice Cowan with a group of her teens and the teen leadership. And Janice is retiring this year, so I happen to have that picture as a celebration for her. But they're on the ground working. They are building coalitions in their communities. They're working with other agencies. They're working in schools. They're writing grants to implement programs. They're responding to all our little demands from campus. They're running county fairs. They're holding camps. They're leading their teams. I mean, they are the busiest people in the world. And so they really rely on our office and in some cases me in particular to make sure that what they're doing matches what we say we're doing in 4-H and that it really is based on the best practices. So I spend a lot of time in professional development activities with them, making sure they're connected with the things that they need to do their job well, orienting them, providing training for them. So those three things really around the research, evaluation, policy level, around program development, and then monitoring that implementation and professional development are what I do. I should say that I didn't start out to be a 4-H specialist. I didn't even connect, like Kathy, that even though I grew up in 4-H for 9 years, that there was actually somebody at a university who made these programs happen. And I stumbled upon this by accident. Reading an ad in the Oregonian, I was teaching at a college up in Portland, and it was an ad for a 4-H specialist at Oregon State University 16 years ago now, and I said, well, I could do that. I'm trained to do that, and was so delighted to be able to do this work and enjoy it so much. So anytime you'd like to talk, I would love to keep talking.
Hi everybody, my name is Fonseca and I'm an extension faculty in 4-H here in Benton County, and I also do some programming in Linn County. And my first slide is a puzzle because very often when I think about what I do, I think about a bridge. I think that unlike Kathleen and Mary Arnold, I'm in the community and I do a lot of programming in the communities. And very often I feel that I'm very privileged to live in Benton County because it has Oregon State University. So I can come and talk to Mary, come and talk to Kathy with Mark and kind of like draw resources. And that's the nature of the extension. So when I think about what I do, I feel that I am in a very great position to be in the middle of the university and the community and learning from both sides. I think that the extension work brings all the research-based knowledge from the university to the community, but also learns from the community how the community wants the knowledge to be delivered, what are the needs from the community, and brings that knowledge to the university so we can deliver a program that is culturally relevant. I work a lot with children that speak English as a second language, like I do. Maybe you have noticed a little that's because of that. And that ability to work with the community to create like knowledge is called engaged research. And that's my second slide. And that's the definition of engaged research. And by Barbara Holler, it's basically refers to teaching and research activities that link academic institutions with external communities and is mutually beneficial for the parties, so the community and the institutions. So currently I am doing after school programming. As you know, there are a lot of schools in Benton and Linn counties. A lot of children going to school every day. And all of them have different needs and all of them would love to connect with OSU students to teach them different things. And a lot of OSU students will really benefit from working with these children before they go out into the force, especially if they want to work in the education world. So we know now that the school population is fastly growing and is fastly changing. So we have way more diversity than we did in the past. And the fastest growing ethnicity now is Latino. And we see that at the same time, the teaching force and especially the teaching force that are going to go into traditional education are not that diverse as the children themselves. So with that thought in mind, what we do as extension agents is we are in the community. So we see what are the needs and we can, also connect the resources in the communities with those needs. So we created a program called Fiestas, that means families involved in education and sociocultural relevant teaching. And I'll explain the other part in the top later. And this program basically brings together about 30 students per term from the College of Education to schools here in Benton County, to 2 dual immersion schools, and have them research and reflect about teaching practices with the children that have English as a second language. So we have English speakers, we have Spanish speakers, we have Arabic speakers, Farsi speakers, Japanese speakers, Chinese speakers, you name it. We have a lot of speakers from a lot of languages. And what we try to do is to come up with programming in STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that are culturally relevant for them, so they can relate to those topics and they can incorporate them in their daily life because STEM is in their daily life, basically. And so we created this model and it brings together also business. We often take the children in field trips in community business. We have gone to the gym, to Trader Joe's, to restaurants, to grocery stores and stuff, so the kids can use their math and their science in the real world. So that's how we are trying to make it more culturally relevant programming. We also have some family math and science night when we bring the parents and we play with science and technology activities, but we also have the students acting as cultural navigators that are interviewing the parents from different cultures and asking them, what is it that you would like to know? So we found out that parents are really into cooking and into soccer. So next time we're going to develop, we're actually working out developing a curriculum of physics with soccer. And the kids are really into that. Probably more interesting than sitting in a classroom trying to learn physics. So that's what we try to do. We try to create spaces where we can create meaningful experience for both sides. The students at OSU and also the students at the school system. And we do that by going outside the classroom boundaries and going in the real world. Another program that we recently started, and Dr. Mark Braverman is our evaluator, is the 4F program. This is a 4-H program, and now you know what is 4-H because Mary Arnold did a great job explaining to you. And 4F stands for Fabulous Food, Fitness, and Fun. And this is a new program that we have for middle schoolers, and it's about nutrition and physical. And we also have some students from this college actually involved in that program and coming with me at 2 middle schools here in Benton County and also in Linn counties. And what we are doing with those kids is we are teaching curriculum from Oregon State University using food hero recipes and research-based practices to try to do outreach about healthy living and physical activity. And we partner with Snap Fitness Gym, with the Boys and Girls Club of Corvallis, with Calapooya Middle School, and with community partners that are doing alike work so we can enhance and do more impact instead of reinventing the wheel. And one of the things that I've learned from these kids is they don't do food journals. They do Instagram. So instead of asking them to fill out a paper, they just take pictures and hashtag 4H. That's more attractive for them. And the other slide is just pictures of these programs. So here it's a bunch of kids from Garfield Elementary in a normal day. And then it's one of the kids at Lincoln Elementary. We went to this Health Med store. It's not, the name of the store is not Health Med store, but all the kids were all over the place with the helmets. And after that visit, we did a curriculum based on how many times can you jump on top of a helmet before it breaks. And they were exploring bike and motorbike safety. Here we have the picture of, those are students from the College of Ed. And one of the ladies is delivering a lesson, a mathematics lesson. And the other one is filming the whole process. So when they come back to the classroom, they can watch that film and kind of like reflect on how they teach their own assumptions about child's knowledge and development and all that, so they can better learn how to do that before they actually go into the working force. And here it's the Fabulous Food, Fitness, and Fun. This is in Calapooya Middle School. I have a group of all boys, and they come to cook right after soccer practice. It's lovely inside the room. And we're recruiting more girls for that program. And I have currently a group of just girls and a group of just boys. I don't know why it's that. And finally, my last slide is just contact information. So this is the members of the Fiestas project, but basically it's the contacts that I have for the elementary school, the elementary after school program of STEM. But if you guys would like to come to the 4F program that is just starting, you can contact me. And Mark Braverman is also in that team. And the last question that you guys sent about what can students do to be involved or something like that. So I would say reach out to us. You guys really have a lot of power and you represent a lot of things with the children. They look at you like, wow, they go to the university. And believe it or not, there are a lot of things that we take for granted, like going to the university. But a lot of the audiences that I work with, that's a dream, and they don't know anybody in their families that have actually gone to college. So working with somebody that is in college right now and that they can relate to and make like a close bond and relationship is like a huge deal for them. And I would say that it breaks some barriers and it builds a lot of bridges. So if you guys want to have a meaningful experience outside the classroom and want to have an extension experience here in Benton County or Linn County, contact me. I'll be around and I have a lot of business cards.
You really love the energy and extension, huh? Anna, a great job. My name is Tanya Doctrine, and I work for Family Community Health in Marion County, which is about 38 miles just north of here, Salem. And it stretches east to Detroit Lake, Idana area, sort of north up to Aurora, Woodburn area, and West Salem is actually Polk County. So we don't cross the river in Marion County. What I see in family community health is really about fostering partnerships to build healthy families, healthy communities, and healthy individuals. And in my work, I work really around 3 main project areas at this time. One is the Oregon Nutrition Education Program. Has anybody heard of the Oregon Nutrition Education Program? Maybe a couple of you. Kathy mentioned a little bit about that, the SNAP-Ed. Another is food preservation and safety, and then a new and exciting version is public health extension. So the Nutrition Education Program, SNAP-Ed, in Marion County, I serve with both Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. And I supervise 7 part-time education program assistants who work with families that are limited resource, mostly in Salem, Woodburn, Independence, and McMinnville are our target neighborhoods. We serve about 3,000 people each year. But taking it back to Kathy's work, this is where the work on campus and the research happens in the field. So for example, the GROW project that Kathy mentioned, they developed the SPAN-Ed, the School Physical Activity Nutrition Environment tool. That is a obesity prevention tool that you can use in the school environment to assess what are the strengths of the school and what might be some areas to work on that could help increase healthy food choices and physical activity in the school. And we do those, we do the SPAN-Ed tools in the 6 hub areas, 6 schools that we work in. And one school this past year has now gone from 4 days of physical education a week to 5 days, which is a huge best practice and an amazing accomplishment given the funding and resource environment that we face. We also have the FNEP program, which is the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, and that's more for moms. It's targeted to moms with children 0 to 18 and their families, and that's series-based education. So it's really more classroom-based education for moms, and we involve cooking in each of the classes. In Marion County, or sort of in the Willamette Valley, you know, lots of orchards, lots of agriculture. It's a wonderful environment for food. We have a huge interest right now with local food movement. Extension really is meant to meet the needs of the community, and this is a big interest and need in our community, is making sure that we're accessing the food that we have and preserving it so that we have food throughout the year. And so we have created the Master Food Preserver Program. It was, before I started an extension about 3 years ago, it was kind of on hold for a number of years due to lack of interest. And now I can't, I turn people away. I can't serve all the people that's needed through the Master Food Preserver Program. So it's a way to train individuals. It's an 8-session program, 48 hours of education. And then these Master Food Preservers become certified and then are able to teach in the community, go to farmers markets, promote safe food preservation, and it has increased my capacity, our capacity to serve numerous. Last year we taught 30 different classes, and we saw we were in farmers markets every single month, so more than I could do individually. And then we do general food preservation classes and healthy cooking classes, like kids in the kitchen classes and things like that. And then our public health extension which is something that is new, and Roger can, you know, he gets really excited about it. It's wonderful. It's around that, really that partnership level of how can we work within the community to promote health and make sure that we are the healthiest community. I work a lot with community coalitions. That's how I keep a pulse on what are the needs of the community. And I work with Siew Sun here, who was not able to join us today, but she has a $5 million AFRI grant for obesity prevention in 15 to 19-year-olds. And we'll be implementing the protocol in the field in Marion County here in the fall. So I work on that project. And then just recently, I worked with some community partners. We wrote a grant for just a neighborhood grassroots level walking program to increase physical activity neighborhood by neighborhood throughout the entire city of Salem. It's funded for 1 year through the Salem Health Community Partnership Grant. So I'm very thankful to Salem Health for providing the funds to get that program up and running. So those are the things we work on in Marion County, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So at this point, we're going to ask everyone who presented to join us up front. We had some questions prepared. I think we're hoping for a little bit more time for this part, but naturally these things always take a while to get through, and the presentations are all great. So I think what we're going to do is just open it up to question and answer, because I'm sure some of you in the audience will have some questions, and we want to make sure that your questions are answered before our end. So go for it. Monica?
Hi, I have a question about the funding mechanism for 4-H in counties where the funding disappeared. So like in Lane County, for example, the funding was discontinued at the county level. And so for quite, I think 2 or 3 years, the 4-H program was dormant. And then there were efforts the last couple of years to get that going again, but on a different level. However, the way that the funds were available or not available, a lot of people were left out of the 4-H program that would have liked to have participated, mostly low resource or low income minority families. And so I'm wondering what efforts are being done to make 4-H and other positive youth development programs accessible to low income youth and low income minority youth. So what programs are culturally appropriate for those youth?
Yeah, so that's really a great question. I don't mind jumping, I guess, into 4-H. One of the things that's probably really important to explain about extension, some of you maybe have heard it called cooperative extension. And the reason that it's called that is that it really is a cooperative funding partnership between the university, between the county, and between the federal government. So through our National Institute of Food and Agriculture, there's money that comes directly to Oregon State University for extension programs. And then there's money that comes from the state that is separate from the money that funds the rest of kind of the academic programs at Oregon State. And that funds usually county-based faculty, all of the faculty positions. And then the county plays a very important cooperative role too, because they provide the office space, the travel and the support funds for our faculty, that oftentimes, usually always, the administrative staff, other things that happen. So that really is kind of a complicated funding stream, and it's dependent on all those partners coming to the table. And so what unfortunately has happened in a couple counties, Multnomah was one, and Lane County, as you mentioned, is another, is that because of those county budgets becoming so tight, they were unable to continue to fund their portion of this agreement. And because it's an agreement, it wasn't as simple as just saying, well, we understand your budget's tight, therefore we can't have, we'll pick up those costs. And so what that meant in terms of Lane County and definitely in Multnomah County was, it happened in Josephine County as well, a hiatus, as you mentioned, to find new sources of funding to bring in that county contribution to it. And so that is building, and Roger maybe could speak more specifically to that. But over time, the hope is that we'll come back up to a vibrant 4-H program that, as you say, is bigger and a bigger capacity to do things. To speak to your second question about accessibility to, different audiences, maybe non-traditional audiences, particularly low resource or minority audiences. 4-H from the national level on down has, the picture I have of National 4-H Council, our national partner, has made a real commitment that in growing 4-H, that is how we're going to grow 4-H. So I think from the very top level down to the grassroots efforts, there's going to be a lot of intentional program. It's in our strategic plan to increase access, to make our programs culturally relevant. Our speaker at our national conference, which will be in Portland, not to make a plug, but it's a great conference next October, is a woman named Donna Beagle, who is an expert on poverty, and she is going to come and work with our educators across the system about how do you, about the, just read her material, so the oral versus print communications, and how those are different when you're working with families with limited resources. So all our online forms and our little things we need on time, thank you very much, really isn't going to work for other audiences. So I think we're really investing in education of our workforce as well as our outreach efforts in Oregon to address those things. I hope that answers your question.
That's awesome. As a Lane County family in 4-H and a huge fan of Donna Beagle and a poverty researcher, that is awesome.
I answered right, yay.
So as kids become more technologically advanced at younger ages out there these days, how is the availability of these new technologies being associated with the long-term goals of the 4-H program, and how are they going to be embedded into the future direction?
Well, I could say that it's definitely on our mind. For example, Yay 4-H. You know, it will not be a curriculum on a shelf sort of thing anymore. I mean, one of the things that we talked about yesterday on our implementation call was how do we engage these kids across the state together using technology to make sure that they're sharing what they're learning in the advocacy projects that they have. So that's just one example. The use of Snapchat, you know, or hashtag games. We have done a lot of hashtag games. They love it. You know, we gather a lot of data via hashtag games. It's a really interesting thing. And there was one other thing that, oh, I know, the WAVE project that Tanya talked to. That's really about high tech. You know, I'm pointing at my Fitbit, but accelerometers that are measuring and then teaching the youth based on this, you know, feedback from these motion sensors about their diet, their exercise for optimum soccer playing. Part of that project was very fascinating, is actually using a Second Life format, where they're seeing, well, what happens if you engage kids through Second Life in also in exploring their optimum health related to their soccer fitness. So, you know, it's, and I should also say one more thing, we have a lot of new educators that are much younger than myself who are bringing that energy and that information and teaching us as well. So they kind of laugh at us a little bit. We're going on to the right.
One of the things that, if I can, I'll add about technology in 4-H. About 15 years ago, a program began up at Hillsborough High School called the 4-H Tech Wizards program. And this was really trying to address the high rate, particularly of dropouts among Latinos and Latinas in that particular county. So Tech Wizards is a program that started with mentors from Intel, actually working in an after-school group mentoring program around technology. And so moving forward about 15 years, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention has given $9.1 million to National 4-H Council to replicate 3 evidence-based programs, 3 evidence-based 4-H programs across the country. One of them that was selected was the Tech Wizards program from Oregon. So now this program is being replicated in about 110 sites in 23 states. A little program that started in Hillsborough, Oregon. And one of the things, as Mary has talked about, is once you establish that a program works, then you have to really measure fidelity and make sure that you're replicating the program in ways that you should. But we've got some other little spin-offs that are happening with that. One is a small pot of money from AARP to do the Mentor Up program, where these kids are mentoring seniors about how to use technology, which is kind of a cool thing. And then we have money from American Honda that also has helped use the Arduino sensors, or remote sensing applications, for them to create, do a lot of robotics, both above ground, and then they're also doing remote operated vehicles under the water as well, with robotics. So kids are just, and the thing is, we get them excited about technology, and the whole thing about that is we're really trying to get them excited and then connected to OSU so they find their way to higher education too, So a lot of the students we have in engineering, made their way here, through the 4-H Tech Wizards program.
And another example, just quickly, in the after-school program, to make things culturally relevant, we gave the kids cheap cameras, and they were doing a program that is called Science in the Neighborhood. So they went out in the neighborhood and they were filming everything that was science for them. So they came up with all kinds of weird things. And then they learned to edit the video with the Flipchart program that is very easy to use, and the OSU students showed the elementary school kids how to edit the video, so it was very cool, and we do that every winter.
All right, so I love the conversation that's happening. I wish it could go on, but we want to be sensitive to everyone's time, so it is 12:55. One of the things that's great about this room and this space is that we have it till 2. We have coffee, we have drinks, so anyone who wants to stick around, I think it'd be a great time to continue these conversations, but for those who have to leave, and especially to the panel, if you guys have to leave, we don't want you to feel obligated to sit up here for hours as we continue all the conversations. So thank you guys again for coming. And any contact information, we'll try to make that available for those of you that heard about projects that you're interested in and want to get a hold of these faculty. So thank you.